topics to discuss tonight at this workshop, and we're going to start with, and Ron, I hope it's camp. The F's are silent.
Camp. No, camp.
Oh, it is camp.
Yeah, close enough.
Okay. Duly noted.
I'm not one of those that gets mad if you don't pronounce my name correctly, so.
I would rather pronounce it correctly. And Ron, you're here to talk to the board about the Miracle Field of Greater Rossier on your plans to have an open shelter installed at the playground area, correct?
Yes.
One
One of the major donors for the whole project, whom I met several years ago through my doctor, believe it or not, he helped push with his financial donation the playground, to get the playground completed. So playground's completed. He called me up a few months ago. He said, Ron, is there anything that we need at the playground? I said, well, we have plans, or we're talking about a pavilion, an open pavilion for kids and parents and anyone that needs to get out of the sun and, you know, maybe have a snack or whatever. I know the library used to use the old pavilion to have story time, whatever. So Gary Musis is his name. He offered to fund that, so I took him up on it. I have plans through Santilli Lumber, very similar to the pavilion over at the Fireman's Park at the Rec Center.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, Santilli did the same over there. Just a little smaller. It's 30 by 20. No cost to the town or anything like that. I've been and met with Santilli. I believe they've contacted the town too. So they would be able to start the first or second week of September. The only thing they would require is, and again, that's provided that you guys are able to do that. If not, it'll have to be a pushback. I saw that look on your face like, so.
The only reason to look on my face, and I'm glad that Town Attorney Genesi just walked in, is one thing I've learned in 8 months is that there is certain steps, resolutions, all that stuff. I don't know if that comes into
I know that they've been
play
in contact with the town hall. That's, you know, when I met with them a couple times over here at the playground.
You mean DPW as far as?
Santilli Lumber.
So who have they contacted at the town hall?
That I don't know. I could find out.
Josh, is that you?
That probably was Rod, the
Probably
building
Rod.
inspector. So, and again, that was the date they gave me. I mean, whenever, you know, it's the end of the year. We're good whenever you guys are good, so.
Charlie, what do we have to do for this?
I just walked in.
Come on, Charlie.
So does it?
What is it that we
It's an
are
open
looking
shelter
at?
over at Challenger Miracle Field, so
At
they'll
the
need a building
playground.
permit probably. Does it have to go to planning? It's a park.
No, I know. I'd have to look at we own Miracle Field, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'd have to look at the contract that we've got. And I know we have a maintenance agreement with Miracle Field to run it, so I guess I'd have to look at that before we do anything further.
Right, okay.
Well, let's figure out how to make it happen.
Okay.
I think. Do we all think it's a good idea?
Great idea.
Yeah.
There's a spot right there. It's all, you know, it's.
I think it's awesome.
Obviously, the gravel road that they ran down around Field 1 there, it's going to go pretty close to the east end of the playground. The only thing that would need, if we could get some help with just some crushed stone gravel to start on.
I'm with you.
I think
you
he's
dumped it yet, Joe?
looking at you, Joe.
Joe, have you dumped the stone there yet?
Nothing. We'll take care of the concrete. That will probably happen in the springtime. Let it settle. And from what I understand, it's like a one-day job. They get a crew and they come in and boom, boom, boom. And it's, what's that?
This is like the police garage, comes up in one day.
How big is it, Ron? I mean,
30 by
600
20.
square feet.
30 by 20.
Yes, it'll match the building that's over there. Actually, the roof line, the metal roof over at the building that we have up there. So
Can I take a walk with him when we're done here, just over to that site, so he can show me exactly where it's gonna go? Because I have some information about maybe where it should go, maybe where it should not go.
Would love it.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, that was just, you know, we were looking at it, I mean, where are we planning to put it?
Well, there's places over there that shouldn't be excavated.
You think?
I know.
Okay,
I
what
know.
do you guys know? Jimmy House over there?
Well,
We don't
Pretty
know who
close.
he's buried there.
if he was in one of the refrigerators,
Jimmy,
Jimmy refrigerator.
Things have gone south pretty quick.
Thank God it's a workshop.
Ron, are we talking about basically just, you said an open shelter, so it's basically a roof?
I will tell you, based on Bill and Barry, I want Barry to go over there with us.
Yeah,
We might have to do a resolution that, yes, you do go over there with Barry.
Okay.
So that's really, yeah, so that's all it is.
That's all it is.
There's no wall.
Yeah, and then we'll work with Charlie and
If you've been over
and figure
to
out how
they've got a-
the best way to get this
I
done.
mean, if you don't have grandchildren, you probably not going over there. I'm over there all
Obviously,
the
better
time.
letter of the law, but
right.
Yeah, it's up
I
there.
don't know enough to be dangerous on what hurdles there are.
Ron, we're gonna figure it out,
Okay, thank you.
and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks,
Barry will be
Ron.
giving us a report.
See you, man.
Hey, we just picked up some time.
Yeah, let's get it through. Yeah. Tell Sky not to talk too long.
Well, guess what, Ahmed? Now, it's 5:36. You did not pick up an additional 9 minutes. No.
See, I like the way
Now
he
you're
thinks
down to
it.
4 minutes.
I try to find the other time that's left over.
Now you're down to 4 minutes.
All right. I guess we'll start without Mr. Dean.
Yep.
All right. So, thanks very much for the time. I just wanted to give you guys what is normally our mid-year update, delayed obviously a little due to COVID and other things. If you look at 2019, we finished with 3,148 calls. We mutual aided 200, and we had a 93.7% call coverage for NEQ. For WEMS, we finished 2019 with 3,088 calls and a 95.3% call coverage. So, you know, when you sit and look at that together, we are well over 6,200, almost 6,300 calls for this agency in the town running EMS, which is a pretty good number compared to, you know, prior years. I tried to extrapolate and do some math for 2020 through July 31st. Year to date, we're at 1,609 calls. We've only mutual aided 8 calls for NEQ, which is pretty good. And then that's a 94.8% call coverage, so that's a typo there. It was more like 148 mutual aided calls. And then for WEMS, it's 1,607 calls with 82 mutual aided for 96.4 call coverage. The things that I like to talk about, you know, I think is what makes it a difference having us here, is for NEQ year to date through July 31st, 7 cardiac arrest saves. So those aren't just, hey, we got a pulse back and lost it at the ED. That's 7 people went back home in the town of Webster with NEQ being there. 9 overdose saves, 10 RSI responses. So if you remember, those are the responses where we called to give advanced airways with paralytics and specially trained paramedics. And then we delivered 1 baby, so we increased the population. So we saved the population by 7 and we increased it by 1. And then for WEMS, we had 3 cardiac arrest saves and 1 baby delivery. And of course, the delta between the WEMS and NEQ is going with West Webster, Penfield, Ontario, other agencies that we respond with. So it was a pretty good year to date so far, even in light of COVID. And then I've got an asterisk there. We'll talk a little bit later about July of this year. It was a difficult month, and so we actually had a day and a half where we shut the agencies down. So we'll talk about that later. One of the reasons that we think having community-based EMS is this next table. So there are standards that we try to meet. And, you know, when you're laying on the floor and either not breathing, or your airway's getting closed with anaphylaxis, or you've broken that hip and it hurts like hell, or you're just not feeling well and you want someone to help, time makes a difference. And so there's some metrics that we have used to gauge ourselves against, set up by the Monroe-Livingston Regional EMS Council. And so they say the first metric is for priority 1 calls, they want somebody there within 10 minutes. And so NEQ for all of our calls, so this includes going into Penfield, into Irondequoit, into Ontario, wherever else we may need to go, we are there within 10 minutes 90% of the time. which is pretty good, I think. If we do Webster only, we're also there for 90% of the time. So what that tells you is that little blue truck gets around pretty quickly. If you look at WEMS calls, 91% of the time for all of our calls, so we've been doing a lot of mutual aid into Arundecoit, we've been mutual aiding to the West Webster side, we are hitting 91.5%. If you look at Webster only for our town, we're almost at 95%. So, you can read the rest of this chart on your own, but I think what it shows that with few exceptions, we are exceeding all of the metrics. And the few exceptions I say is the last line where we can't even fill in the box there because it's for calls within 25 minutes and we don't have anything that great. So we just max out those last two boxes. Are there any questions on that first page?
Yeah. Was this baby deliveries two different ones?
I'm not sure, Bill, I don't remember. I think they were the same.
Okay, thanks.
So, as you all know and remember hearing several times, we were severely impacted by COVID in the spring of 2020. And in April and May, we had days when we had no calls. So if you do the math, if you do average of 3,000 calls a year, we're running 8 to 10 calls per agency per day. 0 is a pretty alarming number. So what I did is I took the math that we have of the calls through July 31st and I extrapolated them, just doing 7/12 math and taking out through the year. For any queue, it looks like we would finish somewhere around 2,758, and for WEMS, 2,754. That is 390 calls off for any queue and 334 calls off for WEMS. Why does that matter? Because that's how we get our revenue. So our expenses didn't go down. We didn't reduce our staffing in the town. We made sure that the same number of ambulances and paramedics and EMTs were around, but we've taken a pretty big hit, almost 10% is what we estimate. Now that could come up, right? We are seeing the volumes come up as people are getting back out and about. We are seeing the number of respiratory calls hitting again, and when the winter comes, who knows what's in store for us depending on the weather. But if we just do the math right now, just statistically, it's a pretty big drop over last year. We now have 6 full fly cars. So last year when I came to report it, I think it was 4. So we've added 2. One is an old fly car that we use just for running around the community. We're getting ready to fire up our CPR classes again, and we typically have some of our instructors in that vehicle. And in case they get a call out, we wanted them to be able to respond because it's equipped. And then we added a new vehicle for one of the ones that was wrecked last year. We've got 5 full ambulances now, all fully equipped and ready to go. And so we have one of the biggest fleets in the community. Right now, we are actually leasing an ambulance to Arundecoit. They had an ambulance that was T-boned in July, and our 6th ambulance that we will be decommissioning pretty soon, we are able to give to them for a very modest sum so that they can keep their fleet intact and their calls up. We had to suspend our training, so it's a small amount of income, but it's a big amount of community engagement. We like to go out and do the CPRs, the AEDs, the stop the bleeds, and obviously with COVID, we stopped it. We're hoping to get that fired back up in September, both in the library and or with Chris's place. We'll see how that goes. And we do a lot of those on site, so that makes it easy for us to do. During the civil unrest, I think Tom and Patty, I sent you guys some texts, but when the riots were happening in the city, NEQ was actually the first fly car to go back up Arundecoit when it was moving up north. And then the following weekend, we actually staffed and supported a SWAT task force out of NEQ and WEMS. So what I'm really trying to show you is that while I think we're doing a pretty damn fine good job in our town, we're also supporting our community in a broader range throughout Penfield and into Arundecoit and the county. Right now, 65% of the mutual aid that goes into Arundecoit ambulance comes out of WEMS because AMR and Monroe can't cover. Arundecoit has to go into the city, and then we wind up going to back them up. So helping reduce their time. And what we do a lot of times is when they are out of ambulances, we park one at Bay and 104 so that we're covering both of our towns, but we can get on the bridge and go across to help reduce response time. Because the traditional way in the good old days was we'd sit in our base, we'd hear a call, we'd have to get going. We're like, let's save a few minutes, and so we've decided to stage ambulances, and that's worked out pretty well. The next thing that we're really excited about, and optimistic, and frankly I need Ron Camp's fundraising skills, but our building plans are approved. I hope tonight after this meeting, the board of NEQ will be approving the contract with our contractor, and we hope to break ground sometime in mid to late September with a completion date sometime mid-2021. Our biggest short-term challenge is to get this building enclosed before the snow flies, because we don't have any financial redundancies for having to have extra heaters and all that. So we have to bring up the lot 3 feet, we gotta dump a lot of soil, compact it, and then get the shell up. Once we get that done, then we can breathe and the clock runs smoothly. If we get caught by weather somewhere in there, then we'll have a glitch that will delay us significantly. You know, I will say this someday, I'll hope to stop talking about it, but cost versus revenue remains a challenge for us, right? We continue to balance ourselves very carefully. We don't live in any luxurious situations, but I think we have not in any way reduced the quality of service we provide. So we're driving some older ambulances, we lease equipment where we could buy it. You know, we try and make sure that we are managed properly. However, you know, a number that's worth mentioning is on the west side of town where any queue cannot get billed through an ambulance because the West Webster Fire District doesn't bill, we are through August 26th just under $80,000 in write-offs. So that's a pretty hefty number. You know, we're in discussions with how to mitigate it. It's a fact. We don't, I mean, it is what it is until there's some other change in the way EMS is delivered in the community. That's just how it's going to be over there. So just to share that data with you. You know, we do need some community support, and, you know, fortunately Supervisor Flaherty and Councilman Cahill and Paul, you know, we're having some discussions, and the community does step up, right? So we have not been without support. The down payment for our building will be from the community. But, you know, if there's any people you know that may have some extra money to write off in the fall or need a place to donate, we're happy to take it. So the next topic before I get to our conclusion is July was a bad month for us. As you know, we lost one of our medics to suicide. He was a 20-year-old EMT. He had been with us for just about a year. And that was probably one of the worst calls we will get as leaders of any agency. He was my Friday night partner. So he wasn't just one of my 52. He was the guy that Friday nights I hang out with quite often. And we made a very difficult decision. You know, this broke at about 7:45 in the morning. And, you know, you walk and you don't know where to go. Your head is like, holy crap, what does a leader do at this situation? And so the 3 chiefs and I convened, and we made the decision. We said, we're shutting down the ambulance service. And we called Tim Sopransky, we called Dr. Cushman, and we said, you know, we need our agency to focus on ourselves right now, and we need help. And he got 4 ambulances lined up. We shut ourselves down for 24 hours. The Monroe County stress debriefing team came. We had 2 debriefings in our base. And then the next day, we said, when do you go back? And we polled the staff, and they're like, we can't sit and cry about this anymore. And so after 24 hours, we fired it up, and we went back to work. 4 weeks later, we had another debrief, just as a follow-up. We shut down for part of the day. We're covered by Arundecoit and Penfield. And so when you look at our numbers in the asterisk, we lost a pretty busy day. That was the one day we gave away almost 20 calls. The mutual aid ambulances got crushed that day. And, you know, in retrospect, I think it was the right thing to do. God forbid we ever have to do it again. We do the same thing. But we needed to focus on our people. We needed to focus on ourselves. And we need to really kind of come to terms with that tragedy. And so, you know, the next thing that I want to just talk about a little bit is something that is kind of one of the taboo topics that no one talks about, and that is PTSD and suicide, right? It is a topic we don't talk about. We have classes that nobody goes to. We have, you know, debriefs that people don't want to come to because, you know, our shells don't want to be broken. But the reality is, and what we learned that day was, it's part of our business, right? It's what we see and what we do. We go to calls that people in their wildest dreams can't envision, and we have to do it the next day. It's not like we can have a bad day and say we're going to take a week off. We had the car accident on Empire Boulevard, 4 very critical patients, you know, possible children involved. Your mind is going into that. The next day we had a teenage suicide. Then we have ODs. Then we have adult suicides. You know, COVID is challenging us in ways that we had not envisioned in the past. People are waiting longer to call. When they call, they're sicker, right? So we're going from these cycles where we have 5, 6, 7 calls a day to the next day we're getting 12, 14, 16 calls a day, and we're getting crushed. Well, there's no time for you to get the squirrels out of your head. There's no time to say, man, that was really awful, you know, and go talk about it or disengage, because guess what? The next day we're doing it again. And so we are making a commitment within NEQ to talk about PTSD. We're going to talk about these bad calls. We're going to engage the county team more often. And we're going to try and work to erase the stigma associated with, you know, being the tough guy and what Robbie Unger's dad called EMS strong. Right? We go home, we deal with all of these things on our own. We rarely talk about it to each other. We rarely talk about it to our families. We hide and hide and hide until it gets to a breaking point, and then bad things happen. And Robbie was my 11th friend in my 30-year career that I have lost to suicide. And I bet you if you pull up other EMTs, we all have long lists. And we've got to make it stop. It will never go away. It is the nature of the beast. It's like police, it's like the fire, it's like the 911 dispatchers. But one thing we're going to try and do is at least slow the pace of this disaster. And so the last thing I just want to do is to thank and recognize the people who aren't in the room but would like to be. First of all, the 50 employees of NEQ and WEMS. They do an outstanding job day in and day out. They have survived through this COVID epidemic, and I think, based on the stats I showed you a minute ago, they're making a pretty big difference in the lives in our communities. I want to specifically call out our operations staff. Jerry Fideli, he's been with us for 21 years. Deputy Chief of Operations Matt Lloyd is going on his 15th year. Deputy Chief of Administration Julie Jordan is on her 22nd year. And then we've got some captains and lieutenants, Corey Best, Nate Hinman, Kaylee Hodge, Kirsten Horbert, and Keisha Bentenses. These people are the ones that I say cash the checks that I write. It's easy for me to go out and make commitments. It's easy for me to say, let's do a parade today at Maplewood. Go do these parades. Go do this standby. Staff this event. But these are the folks that have to do it. And when they say we're shutting down an ambulance, they're the ones that have to figure out how do we get back out. When we have, people call in sick, these are the ones that make sure we never missed a shift. I'd also like to thank the board of directors, who are all volunteer board of non-EMTs. I'm the only paramedic that's acting and still on the board. These are 11 citizens. There are doctors, there are nurses, there are nurse practitioners, there are people who give of their time to make sure we've got the right strategic direction for this organization. You have never met Dr. Katsetos. Hopefully at our groundbreaking you will. But Dr. Katsetos volunteers his time as our medical director, and we don't recognize him enough. I wanted to do that tonight because during COVID, Dr. Katsetos is the one that helped us make sure we were properly equipped and protected and had the right direction on how to keep our staff safe and our patients safe. And he does that without asking for any compensation from us. And the last person who's not here is Susan Garbasic. She is our new office manager. She joined us in February. And without Sue, I wouldn't know where to go on a given day, and half the stuff we need to do wouldn't get done. So I just wanted to publicly recognize all of those folks. And the last thing I'll do, since I've got 10 minutes left.
No, you don't. I was impressed because we're right at minute 16 right now.
I'm doing my best to talk
I
as
thought
fast
that
as I
was
can.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That was
I'll
impressive.
close with a question that I ask every time I give this update. We are here for you. We are here for the community. We serve at the pleasure of the town board. Are we meeting your expectations, and would you like us to do anything different?
You're doing a great job, keep it up.
Thank you.
I think you
Personally, I
do
think-
more than our expectations. You exceed our expectations.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming in and speaking to us again today. And Webster is extremely fortunate to have your services and your people in this community. And those people that have personally received your services absolutely know the value. Absolutely, without a doubt. I'm glad you brought up the PTSD issue and that you are addressing it with your people, because it's not only happening with emergency services, but look at our veterans.
Yeah.
Okay. And one thing that you said is that you're going to address it by talking. You got to do that. I'm telling you, it's extremely important.
Thanks.
No, I've said it every time you've been in. You're doing a great job. And I was part of the discussions when we met with the overall county group, and they were talking about, well, a 90% rate's okay, and we can, that's all that's expected. But when you see that you then go to 99.6 or you're at 91.5, every moment matters. And I'm not willing to accept what's acceptable. I want to, if that's my loved one or myself, I want you there as soon as you can get there, and you've far exceeded that every time. I also want to say that I did come down to your headquarters the day that Robbie passed, and I was extremely impressed with the assistance that you were getting from the different agencies and how they were there to help out with all of your personnel. And it was It was really something to witness.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you for coming down. People
Yeah.
recognize that and we appreciate it.
No, it's, so, as Bill said, you're exceeding our expectations. Obviously, there's a financial cost to this, and it's difficult, and we understand.
We're managing it, right? We're keeping the boat afloat.
I'd love to see some sort of fundraising events for your new building.
Oh,
You
we
know,
tried,
whether-
right? So we
whether it
did
be a
remember we
chicken
did the food truck
barbecue.
rodeos for a while?
Yeah.
And, the road to hell was paved with good intentions, and we had a lot of neat ideas for this year, it's just,
Sure.
I think we're gonna have to find something a little bit different. So we'll pick your brain for some ideas.
Yeah, although that's not a bad idea, or drive-through takeout foods and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I think the community would get behind it and support it.
Yeah, I'm gonna just tie up by saying this. I hate to be the buzzkill, this with a very good feeling. The financial aspect, a couple months ago, you sat here, Ahmed, and presented, and I was kind of rough that night saying I need to understand the business more. And I would say that you would agree that we've been in about 8 to 10 hours of meetings. Councilman Kale's been in at them, Finance Director Adams. We're trying to really figure this out. And then at some point, hopefully, we'll be able to present to the board. But you have a very complicated business from a financial standpoint. So we're working on that.
Yeah. Well, and I thank you for taking the time, I mean, it's a lot of your time.
Well, it's, look, all these other things, 2-minute difference for getting a call time. It's the difference between someone dying and not. So it's worth investing the time to make sure that we can figure out how to have that service the best around. But there's always fiscal aspects, and unfortunately, the 5 of us were elected to be fiduciaries of the town. Sometimes it's not that fun to
Most
be
times
that.
it's not.
But I'm going to just leave you with this, and as Councilman Dean knows, he was involved. We were trying to figure out the end resolution to the drug drop-off box here in town. When you talk about PTSD and health issues and whatever, yesterday when we met with Ahmed, what was ostensibly a financial meeting, as we got into the context of talking about how we're trying to figure out what to do with the drug box that's at the police department, and maybe if someday it's at a different place, at a drugstore like Walgreens or whatever. Unsolicited, Ahmed said, at the new building that they're building, I'll put a drug box. You want it built in? Is it a standalone? He just, all of a sudden, he's online changing the engineering of your building.
Plans
So
changed, yep, it's done.
that's impressive. That he's stepping up. One thing is being in that profession, but you understand the health challenges of PTSD, but also the health challenges we have of the drug epidemic. And we need a place in Webster for people to get rid of these drugs, and I appreciate you for stepping up.
And how appropriate.
Yeah, how appropriate.
How appropriate.
Well, that's what we thought.
People that are trained will know how to handle the issues.
Yeah.
And Mr. Dean, what we've been talking about, remember, the building concept is we want EMS to be more integrated in our community. We want people to come to us, and we've built, a quarter of our admin space is a training room. And so maybe if someone drops off that medicine and they have a problem, maybe they'll knock on the door and say, could I get some help?
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll be able to see them and say, is there something we can do? Or, right, it's one more opportunity to engage than just, dropping it off at some random place. So that's our goal, and, to the supervisors, there was a need, and we're here to help. So
We didn't ask, and you jumped right in, and I appreciate that.
So thank you for the time.
Hey,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you very much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Good job, buddy.
Superintendent Herbst.
Talk about being in the starting line
Yeah.
at the rate of information he unspiels in such a short time. Now you know who I try to emulate.
Oh, my God.
Well, I thought between the two of you, it could be a real
It could be a race.
Yeah, it could be a
Want to put a yield
contest.
sign up?
I think I've got more acronyms though. What's that?
You're just trying to put a yield sign up, right?
So, yeah. Yeah. Pretty,
Put it up.
this one's pretty simple.
Put it up.
So, yeah. Well, it's gotta be, by law, it's gotta be voted on, passed as a resolution.
I move that we approve the yield sign at Time Drive and Providence Drive.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
All right, thank you.
Bye, Joe.
No, not bye. You got an ash tree yet, right?
Oh,
Yep.
that's right.
Yeah, you're next. Well, that's you and Paul, right? Is it you and Paul, or is it Paul? Who does the next one?
We're awarded
We
the
do.
bid.
Or does.
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't know if any of them want to. Bill, do you think?
I would move that we award the ash tree removal project for the amount of $86,000 to Birchcrest Tree and Landscape.
Can we discuss this a little before? Yeah.
Yep.
We can.
I really like how Bill moves things along, but this, we might want to break a little bit. Go ahead, Charlie.
I've worked on this today, so that's why I just want to know, I guess, Josh, where are we with this particular contract?
So we only received one bid.
I was just gonna ask that. I only see one on here.
They're the
Yeah.
only bidder.
And we wouldn't even gotten one bid if I wasn't sitting in the parking lot outside this building. Because the only bid, when I was on the phone with Dolly at 5 minutes to 11, there was no bids. I was on the phone with her, and she said, "You're not gonna believe this," because I'm sitting in an empty parking lot out here waiting for openings, and she said, "We have none." So I saw Dave Daly run by in his vehicle. I said, "Dolly," I said, "Dave is pulling up to the door now." She ran to grab the package, asked him if it was a bid spec. She ran and time-stamped it at exactly 1100. So we're lucky that Dave made it in when he did.
How many trees are we talking here?
As many as we can get down for $86,000.
There's,
Well, okay, we'll spend $86,000 for one tree.
You might.
275.
Yes.
which is
So,
roughly about like $300.
$312.20
That's a
apiece.
really good price.
That's a deal.
I guess all of these trees are in right-of-way or in park districts?
No, not right of way. They're either on town land or park district land. The right of way ones we're taking care of now. We're doing it with our own crew. And then we have 9 going down, hopefully within the next week, 8 on Maple Drive and 1 at the corner of Woodbridge and Holt that have got to come down, and they're much bigger than we can accommodate.
So
So,
we're taking down the ones we're able to do.
yes. Yeah, we just dropped 5 in Northbrook and Summerdale, that area. Yep.
in the park district ones, do we absorb that cost?
No,
No, park district.
It gets billed back?
correct.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
Some are in park districts.
Well,
Quite a few, actually.
what I've got here, it says the park district trees bid is 56,300. The town land is 29,007.
It's probably about right.
That is
Right.
correct.
It's in the packet.
Yep.
So,
And all we're doing with those trees is felling them so that they're no longer liability. There's no cleanup or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
Do they understand that? Park districts, do they understand that that's how it's gonna happen?
A lot of when it was Nick Mooney and myself that met with most of the homeowners and walked it with them, and we painted the trees, almost, I'd say out of 275, 250 were marked. We marked them on the backside so that the homeowners wouldn't have to see paint marks, or when the leaf drops, look at the paint marks if we put them up high. So we marked on the back either total or partial. And then when we spoke with Dave Daly, asked him as far as the bid specs, if they were easy enough to understand, and he said, "Yeah, you're just trying to remove the liability." I said, at that point, if, some say seed with a canopy, but it might be easier to fell the entire tree based on if it's only 8 inches or smaller, you're not climbing a tree that minimal, so.
No, I actually meant, does the park district understand that once it comes down, it stays there and they're gonna have to get rid of it?
So, yeah, or leave it.
Or leave it.
That's
Yeah,
big,
just
is leave
get rid
it.
of it. We'll just leave it.
you know,
Yeah.
and
The only caveat is on Pond Brook, we have about 10 or a dozen that are going to be in a floodplain. But what I specified is that the brush and or trees need to be left in a manner where they're not going to obstruct flows.
Can I, and I'm glad we did have a little discussion on this, because, I mean, we've dissected, I'm happy with the bid. I mean, obviously, in 2 months, when they do all the work, if they do what they say they're gonna do and whatever, I think it worked out to be a fiscally as good a situation as we can get. The way I understand it, we gotta do this resolution tonight, then once Charlie and we met today, because the contract, it's a 2-page kind of boilerplate. We need to do some work on it with Birchcrest before we come back into this board and authorize the supervisor
Well,
to sign the contract.
Actually, Josh, did you talk to anybody?
Not directly, but we did put together a draft contract that was essentially the most important elements from the bid spec and merged it with some of
Right.
Ridgecrest's clause.
Yes.
So we did send it off to them this afternoon for their review. Did not
Good.
get a response back yet.
And look, I will tell you this, this is something Charlie and I have talked about. I think from a business perspective, whenever we are getting into a contract with a service provider or whatever, they have to provide us their template contract. We don't draft contracts. Now, once they provide us with their contract, if there's problems with it or it's not robust enough, and I think that's one of these situations, well, then we need to intervene and do some things to make sure that it's ironclad and whatever. I will ask this, I mean, I think that, and Bill, we're almost there, to do this resolution.
Based
okay?
on this information, we're not ready to do a resolution.
No, this is just to accept the bid. We're not authorizing the supervisor to sign the contract. Because we don't have a contract. That's a separate thing, correct, Charlie?
In this case, there's enough issues, I think, that,
Right.
we had questions about. That's, obviously, there's legal aspects to accepting the bid. But, in this case, we don't have a full-fledged contract unless it's understood that the bid specs constitute the contract.
Tell you what,
Should we wait until we have the contract?
I have no problems with
I
us
would
pushing
table it.
this. If we table it and then try to kill two birds with one stone at the next formal board meeting, which is accepting the bid and signing, authorizing me to sign the contract, I have no problems with that, but in this,
I would feel, as the board's attorney, I'd feel more comfortable if you did that, yes?
Yes.
okay.
I would move to table
Then
it.
Bill, why
So,
don't you make
so
that
Bill, you
motion?
withdraw your motion then? Okay,
No,
I
Dave.
move to table it.
Second.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, so I'm sure that probably next week we'll be able to get to this, because Charlie and Josh, where we were at with Birchcrest, whatever, we're close.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of ways technicalities, but there are devils in the details, and we need to get that tied up. I had asked the board this, we were just talking about how this contract is about dropping these trees or dropping canopies and then just leaving them on the land, okay? That's what we put out in the bid. Is there any merit to us looking to see if we get revenue from someone coming to buy that wood and take it out of there? Ash tree is very good firewood, but on the other side of the coin, there's campgrounds that they will not let you bring wood in now because they're afraid of the ash trees because of the boars.
Well, you can only move that wood a certain amount of miles per DEC regulations anyways.
Yeah.
It's like 60 miles. You can't move it any farther than that. I don't know what specifically it is, but
You're
it's
right.
small. The number's pretty small.
If we leave it in the land, I mean, and that's what our plan is, does that bring consequences in the months and years to come that there's wood sitting on the land?
No.
If it's out in the North 40, no. If it's in a watershed or a floodway or floodplain, yes.
Or trails.
Yeah, there's none of the ones, the park districts are actually on any of the, like, big woods or anything like
Not
that.
any designated trails, but you know,
Correct.
they use them, that people do, the kids play in those park lanes in some places.
Yeah, and all the ones we visited, there was only one trail. And that was just for the homeowner to dump his crap on the back land. That wasn't a trail for
Unfortunately,
kids.
that's where a lot of the park districts are used for. Okay.
These were, unfortunately, where a vast majority of these trees are absolutely loaded with poison oak and poison ivy. So I doubt the kids or anybody's gonna be playing back there.
Okay.
And I can attest to both.
Drop it and leave it.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I guess I'm a revenue hound. I thought if somebody wants to come and buy it.
It's a good idea.
you know.
As a matter of fact, down in Yates County, I know there's a number of people that will actually, after you have your property logged, people will go in and pay you for the tops, and they'll sell it for firewood. Group of logs this long, that big around, campwood, $5. You know how many tree tops, oaks, $5 bills are in there? No, it's a good.
It's just a discussion. Tonight it's raining. Did a light just go out?
Yep.
Let's put it this way. This is not a resolution. It was just a discussion. Duly noted, Councilman Abbott, drop it, leave it. Duly noted, John, that it sounds like there might be a market for this type of wood, maybe not, because it's got the ash borers in it,
Right.
or whatever they're called. I'm gonna make a few calls just to see if there's anything there.
Do you know who to call?
No. Ghostbusters?
Larry Kraft?
Timmy.
Possibly?
Yeah, Timmy Kraft. Larry's
Okay.
out of the business.
Larry's retired.
His son?
His son, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Timmy.
Okay.
And or even possibly Aaron Preston,
Yep.
possibly.
Eric
Okay.
Preston, all I wanted for
Hey,
you.
for every ash, there's a seat.
Well, you know,
Discussion
I
on
think we might move on to the budget
So maybe-
schedule, but you know what? I will say this. This is supposed to be a situation that by Halloween, these trees are all down. So we need to get this thing moving along so that
Well,
the
I
first
think
guys
we
can get out there.
we had the discussion today,
Right,
you and I did, and Josh and I did, and,
yeah.
there-
I
we'll
would-
look at it, it's a little, it's just quickly.
Right, the window of my idea, if it has any merit, is pretty short, or small, you know, and so we'll make a couple calls, and they might say, oh, no, nobody wants any, then that'll be it.
Yeah.
And I'll report back to the board, and if they say, no, we'll pay you $1 million for it. I don't think that's what's gonna happen, so, but let's see what they say, because there would be some benefit to getting the freaking dead logs out of the land. But, we'll see. Thank you, Superintendent Herbst. And by the way, before we leave, I had my first meeting with Superintendent Herbst and his 3 foremen the other day as we start to take a real close look at where we want to go with the highway department in the future, huh? It's going to be fun.
People, places, and things.
Yeah, yeah. He thought that we're breaking ground on the new highway garage next week. I was like, well,
Wishful thinking.
yeah. You go and play the lottery, Joe, and when you win.
Hey, I'm not the one that brought that up.
Donate it to
foreman
the
was.
town, and I think we would all agree that we will break ground next week. Well, Paul Adams,
Yes, sir.
I think you are up.
All right. Since 2020 is shaped up to be a pretty unusual year, Tom and I were talking, and we thought it might be prudent to delay the budget schedule for the 2021 budget. I circulated it around. Hopefully you all got a chance to look at it. We had originally scheduled the public hearing for September 17th, and I'm proposing that it be moved to October 15th with a final adoption on November 19th. I think it was previously in mid-October. So it's pushing it out 4 or 5 weeks. I prefer not to go too much later than November 19th, because there's information I have to get to Monroe County. It just gets a little tight. So I just wanted your thoughts on it, and if you're agreeable, we'll change the schedule.
I don't see any problem with this, and if there was ever a year that we delayed this, this is the one. As you said, it's been an unusual year. There's still several unknowns. We've been making some good steps forward in the budget internally,
Yes.
but there are other things that will affect it. And as long as you're comfortable with this time frame, I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I won't be here. I'm
All right.
going on to the 9th, the 26th of October.
Oh, are you really?
So I won't be here at that meeting.
Oh, you'll be back.
Can mail in a ballot.
You're a hardy son of a gun.
I'm having a knee operation.
Oh, you won't be here.
But you said it's the 26th.
Of October.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's only 2 weeks.
the 19th.
You won't be back by that November 19th?
Actually,
I bet you will.
not to get too. Are you doing outpatient rehab, or are you doing it at home? 2-person HIPAA.
Yeah. Better stop while you're at it.
Have you ever had a knee replaced?
No.
Oh. Okay.
We'll hope for the best.
Yep, so will I.
And you know what? You could always call in.
I could.
So you waited to the end of golf season, didn't you?
It was supposed to be October 8th.
That's not the end of golf season.
No.
Paul? I'm
Yeah.
fine.
You're good?
Yeah, I understand.
All right.
Which knee?
All right, we'll change the dates on the website.
Okay.
Let me get the word out on the Webster Herald.
Charlie?
Well, not after the second operation, which is
Oh,
in
for
January.
God's sakes. Charlie?
What?
Do we need to have a resolution to change the dates of the budget schedule?
It's still within,
I don't think so.
Yeah,
it's within the law.
I'm just asking a
No,
question out of
no,
curiosity.
We didn't pass
it's
a
within,
resolution
the
initially.
legal requirements, so no, that, I think our schedule has always been,
Yeah.
we've always been ahead of it anyway, right?
Yes,
We've
yes.
always done it
Yeah.
well before
Yeah.
election day.
We have till December 17th to pass it, so we're still a
Right.
month ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a, John, you know what, devil's in the details.
Good
Make sure
question.
that-
Just need to make sure the revisions are out there for the public to see it.
I will say this, I think we're sitting here on August 28th with a lot of communication with department heads and whatever, and we have numbers that are in the range of staying under the 2% cap right now. To Patty's point, there are things that could change in the next 2.5 months leading up to November 19th, and I said from the beginning, I love the fact that we got one that's basically there and ready and makes sense, but we get some flexibility to see what happens in the world with unknowns of COVID. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
All right,
Thank you, Paul.
And you'll post it and we'll,
we'll push it out.
Yep.
all right.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so it'll be published in the Webster Herald on October 8th.
He is,
Okay.
that's right.
Okay.
We'll have the hearing a week later.
Okay.
Do you notice, Superintendent Herbst, how efficient our finance director is with his verbiage? And now he's finished his 15 minutes in 7 minutes. Oh, you're up again.
I'm up again. All right.
Is this the pot calling the kettle black?
The next topic is we're exploring the possibility of switching from the paycheck software system back to Munis to prepare our payroll and to carry out some HR functions. Back in October 2018, about 2 weeks before I was lucky enough to come back to the town of Webster, the finance department switched the payroll processing to paychecks. We had used Munis, which is a software system that we use for our complete general ledger package, purchase orders, accounts payable, billing. It's the whole package. So it was all integrated prior to October of 2018. I think the switch was made because there was some concern about ACA reporting, and they thought it would actually save time and make it easier to file the quarterly payroll tax returns and the W-2s. But, in almost 2 years now since we've been into it, we're seeing that it's actually taking quite a bit of time, more time, and the software doesn't quite deliver as advertised. We've had some serious issues with the highway department. When they hit shift time and started kicking in overtime for snow plowing, preparing the highway payroll became very labor intensive. Mary Ann Lamb had to work with Carol Compitello extensively, and she still comes over each Monday that we process payroll just to help Carol balance everything out to make sure the time that's been posted through the time clocks is correct. In fact, Highway actually we installed 3 time clocks that Paychex provided, and Highway actually had to pull the Paychex time clock out and revert back to their original time clock and basically go back to the old system. And they had to write a special software program to interface so that their time would interface with the paycheck system. So to me, it seems that we took a step back, and it's not inexpensive. Paychecks cost the town about $45,000 a year. We're currently in the second year of a 3-year contract, and we do receive a significant discount from Paychecks for these first 3 years. If the discount goes away after year 3, the cost of the payroll is going to be in the range of 65 to 70,000 a year. So we took a look back at Munis because we knew that worked, and I've been going back and forth with them for weeks, and it looks like it will not be inexpensive to switch back. It'll be just over 42,000 to convert back for the payroll and the HR system. And we would also want to add a product they call employee self-service, which actually is a time saver, and that would be an additional 14,000. So you're looking at about 56,000 to switch back. But after you bite the bullet on the initial cost, the annual cost is around 11 or 12,000 versus the 47, possibly up to 70,000 that we're currently paying for paychecks. So the payback is fairly quick. And
I read your email.
we know it works.
Yeah. And you articulated in your email quite specifically the issues that you were having and the frustration. And I read the numbers, and you're the people who work with it every day.
Right.
And I thought you laid out your argument quite well.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem with it.
No, I would agree, Paul, and I know that, because we were part of that switching over, and the first year was rocky,
Yeah.
and we really hoped that it was going to smooth over as we moved along, and clearly it has not.
Yeah, I did too.
And I think you're wise with this advice that before we go any farther than that 3-year discounted contract we have, we should certainly take a look at this, and it sounds like the payback is going to be quite quick.
Right. And Charlie, I think I had you look at the contract as well. It says in the Paychex contract that you give them 30 days notice and you're out, so.
Okay, that was going to be my question.
Yeah.
There's no penalty?
Not that I saw in there, but
I didn't see anything.
we're going to have to make sure of that.
And of course, we're going to have to the timing of this is going to have to be finessed so that we've got coverage all along.
Yes, yes. Ideally, I'd like to jump back over to Munis for January 1st, because that's a nice clean break.
Right.
But you'd have to stay with Paychex into the first few weeks of 2021 for W-2s and the
Right.
ACA reporting.
Right.
So there'd be some overlap. I haven't talked to Munis yet about the conversion, so I don't even know if this is realistic. I also wonder if Paychex charges a fee to allow Munis to convert the data that's in their system.
No, I'm sure.
That I don't know. That would not surprise me. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, well,
They're the ones that have to work with it every day, and if we thought it was gonna help with the payroll and everything else, and
right.
apparently it's not, so.
Microphone.
Not really set up for government.
I read your email extensively, and every point made sense for us to change.
Right.
And we've talked about this forever, that doing highway payroll is very difficult. There's
Very complex.
so many facets to it that it's very, very different.
And thank God for
And
Mary
we
Ann.
haven't ever come across anybody that really
Understood it.
or jumped into it and was able to convert all their knowledge and all the data and complete it right away. It just has been that difficult. And I think you've run into a little bit of that with the police department as well.
Yeah, police department's not too easy either.
right.
We've had some issues there.
Okay, all right.
So I
Yeah,
think you should continue to dig into it, let us know what,
Yeah, I'm gonna try to negotiate these Munis prices down. I'm gonna try to, they're getting us back, I mean, it's gonna be revenue for them, a revenue stream into the future, so,
I like the way you work.
Yeah.
yeah, I've already sent them an email to try to, of course, they didn't respond yet, but we'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Maybe get at least 10,000.
The point you raised, Paul, too, about possibly Paychex charging Munis to convert, maybe something to raise with them to find out.
Right.
If that's been their experience and if they build that into what they bill us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll check with Paychex
The old
to see
pseudo prepayment penalty, yeah, or the,
what they
Yeah,
do.
but except it's not there, it's just,
Right.
it's after the fact, right?
Okay.
all righty.
All right, we'll try
Thanks,
to forge
Paul.
ahead on that one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Damasio?
No,
Oh,
Robert Kiefer.
Mr. Kiefer.
see, you guys are in the know, okay.
Bob Kiefer. DA.
Oh, this is the thing that's been going on.
And the next topic up is about a full permit for 1626 Lake Road on behalf of owner Chris Damasio. And I apologize, Mr. Beaver, that I said, are you Mr. Damasio? Apparently the rest of the board knows you.
Well, my name is Bob Kiefer. I'm a professional engineer with offices located at 255 East Avenue in the city of Rochester. And I've been associated with the 1626 site on Lake Road for a long time. Our firm did the original subdivision of the Eichmann property that created the lot, and then we were involved with the construction of the Damasio house and subsequent projects that went on there. The high water events of a couple years ago had a significant impact on that area. The sites are of 1608, 1614, 1620, and 1626. All are areas where the bluff is about 50 feet higher than the lake level. And when the lake level was 2 or 3 feet higher than normal, there was significant erosion along the shorelines. And each of those property owners at various times made applications to the DEC to put the heavy stone toe protection along the shoreline. Now, that is an effective and frequently used method for controlling the erosion caused by the waves, but these particular lots still had this very steep vertical bluff behind them that was still subject to rainwater and to freezing and thawing and water that horizontally weeps out of the bluff, causing kind of a continuous maintenance problem and a recession of the bluff. Well, ultimately, the owners of 1608, 1614, 1620, and 1626, after they had gotten their permits from the DEC to do the stone, decided that they were going to join forces and make an application to do the heavy stone along the shoreline, but also to lay the bluff back at a 2.4 to 1 slope. This had several advantages for everybody. One was that they would be able to construct a road diagonally down the bluff, which would allow the heavy stone to be placed from the land side instead of from the lake side. And that reduces the cost of this heavy stone protection by about 50%. It cuts it just about in half. They don't have to bring the heavy stone in by barge and then work with a machine off of the barge. They could actually run along the shoreline and set the stone. It also addressed the issue of long-term stability of the bluff. When we lay it back to 2.4 on 1, you can establish vegetation on it, and I don't know if you have an opportunity to go out and look at the site, but that 400 feet of frontage is very nicely revegetated. The application to the DEC, which has been provided to the town on at least a couple of occasions, indicated that there was going to be an excess amount of soil resulting from the laying back of the slope. A bunch of the soil the order of magnitude was 20,000 yards of earthwork. A bunch of it was going to be used to fill in the gullies that existed along the bluff and to reinforce behind the heavy stone. But there was 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 yards of material that was excess, and that material was proposed in the permit, approved by the DEC, to be wasted on the 1626 lot of Chris Damasio. He's the only lot there that was large enough. It's 4 acres, a little more than 4 acres. It had some open area where they could actually spread the soil out. They started the work. It was in the spring of the year. It was very wet. Burroughs Brothers was the contractor for placing the stone and did the excavating. the material was so soft after it was disturbed that it became sticky, muddy, and the only way they could move it on the site was to put down the mats of the 12 by 12 timbers, 12 foot wide, and then they drove their off-road trucks up and down that. And the material that was excess was piled, if you will, on Chris's property. And I have a drawing here that shows the areas that were approved by the DEC for the wasting of the material.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
And things were going along pretty well. I can tell you that I did not prepare those applications to the DEC, and there was concerns expressed by adjacent neighbors that there was a big piles of dirt being put up, and ultimately, Mr. Benway came out, looked at it, and wrote a stop work order that was dated February 6th. The stop work order said that, brought to the attention of everyone, that if you're placing fill material on a property in the town of Webster that is more than 3 foot thick, then you have to have a fill permit, fill grading permit. Well, the intent wasn't that it was going to be 3 foot, more than 3 foot when the permit was sought, but because the material was so wet and because the equipment was on site and they had to move it, they put it up in piles, a long linear pile and one big pile to the south end of the site. So now we were in a position where we were in violation of the town code. The town wanted to see a formal grading plan and erosion control prevention plan. The erosion control prevention plan was prepared by Pinewood Engineering, and the report, this half-inch thick document, was provided to the town for review. If you look at the folded sheet in that handout that I just gave you, it indicates that there are 2 areas where there are existing spoil piles, 1 and 2. If you look at the first 2 photographs, the first photograph is a picture that was taken yesterday of the spoil pile number 1. It's on the east side of the driveway that goes to the house at 1626, and it's a long meandering pile that varies in height. The intent is that when it dried out enough, we would bulldoze that and shape it so that it was a meandering berm, and it wouldn't be more than 3 feet high. If there was extra soil in it, they would move it to the other side of the driveway. The picture number 2 is spoil pile number 2, which is at the south end of the Damasio site, and it was just a pile at the end of this expedient road that was used to get the material away from the bluff. It's intended that that material would be spread out in the middle of that open area in the back, and when it's done, it would be a couple feet thick. This represents 6,000 yards of material. There's been a significant amount of effort by all of the property owners in this group to create positive control of the stormwater. 2 of the sites, 1614 and 1626, employed Burroughs Brothers to do directional drilling, and they installed a large diameter pipe that runs from the top of the bluff down to just above the high water line. So any water collecting in the yards is positively controlled and discharged to the lake. And this was a project that was done again with DEC permit approval a number of years ago. The east-west drainage across the site is an existing swale, and it will be maintained under this new plan. So there'll be no negative impact on the drainage of adjacent properties, and once it's done, it's going to look very much like it did before the spoil was put there, except that it's going to be a couple feet higher in elevation, but it'll all be lawn area. So we're here this evening to ask if we can get a permit to do this so that we can redistribute this soil so that we can hydroseed it and get grass to grow yet this year. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you have.
just asked our superintendent of highway, take a look at it.
Sure.
He knows a lot more about drainage than I is.
The project was very expensive. Placing stone from the shoreline, from the lake is on the order of magnitude of $1,000 a foot. There was a 40% reduction in the 50% reduction in the cost of placing the stone by doing it from the land side, but you still had to deal with all of that cut fill work, and this 400 feet of frontage. The project is $300,000 worth of work. If the excess soil had to have been hauled off of site, it would have been another $50,000-$60,000 more, because it would have had to have been placed on over-the-road trucks instead of off-road trucks, and it would have tore up the driveways, and there would have been issues with where you waste the spoil away, and it just made sense to try to lose this material on site.
Can I ask you, and this really helped, this folding page, the reference back to the actual photographs. Is this, what I'm looking at on this folding page, the 4 acres of 1626 Damasio's property, or is there parts of this line thing that is a neighbor's property? Is this whole thing his property?
This piece of property is
Yep.
16 or 26.
Yeah.
1626.
Okay.
This house is currently occupied by Chris.
Okay.
He bought this property,
Okay.
1620, and that house has been torn down. This is Mr. O'Gray, and then this piece of property is Springsteen. So the frontage that was done under this permit was that area. And all of the soil that is now being wasted away is in these two piles. That's going to go into this area here.
This is somebody else's property?
That's correct.
And this is Lake Road right here?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's what I
And I suspect that you've probably heard from him.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to make sure I put a story to the visual, and now I definitely, yes, thank you, Bob, that, I don't know how much the rest of the board would like
Bob, I have a question.
Just
Yep, you're up there.
what we just-
These pictures, when were these pictures taken? Today or recently? That's it, okay. You say he's gonna bring this fill in and level just basically regrade his yard so it's flatter level. That's the intent?
The area that is depicted in picture number 1, when it's finished grading, is going to be a meandering berm that will not be more than 3 feet higher than existing grade. That'll be on the east side of the driveway that goes to his house.
Okay, is he bringing in topsoil over the top of this when he's done?
That's correct. All of it would be, all of the disturbed areas would be covered by topsoil, hydroseeded and mulched.
Is he bringing topsoil in then? So he's bringing more soil in?
Import topsoil. In the area on the other side of the road, the big circle that is indicated as the proposed disposal area,
right.
he'll have the opportunity to strip that topsoil before he distributes the soil.
And then put the topsoil back over the top.
Topsoil back, but
Okay.
it's anticipated that it will be short and that there will be topsoil hauled in for that.
Okay, I just
So
wanted...
the circle is large enough to handle all of the spoil that's there to the left on the picture.
That's correct.
And you can just lose that all in there and then cover it with topsoil.
Couple feet thick.
Couple feet thick, okay. So there's quite an indentation there.
Right, it's
A hole.
it's kind of V-shaped, and there's surface drainage that runs across that, and we're going to maintain that.
Okay.
So once these piles are reduced to maximum 3 or 2 feet, this doesn't block anyone's sight of anything?
No, one of the issues that was raised by the immediate neighbor to the east, who shares the driveway that goes to Chris Damasio's house, is that for a portion of it, they're on the same driveway, but when they get down to Mr. Damasio's wider piece of property, it splits off. Well, coming out of the adjacent neighbor's property, the material was 4 or 5 feet high, and he couldn't see whether anybody was coming out of Chris Damazio's driveway.
Okay.
That was unfortunate that it got pushed that far and it created that problem. That material has been removed, and now there's no issue associated with being able to see whether or not there's cars in the driveway. And when it's graded down to 3 feet, you'd be able to see the top of a car regardless. So that is going to be a non-issue.
Okay.
And then, what's this right here? It says the driveway goes to here.
Can I defer to the engineer on the board? Bill, should we just, and
But the way I'm reading, if I'm understanding you correctly, all the soil exists on his property.
That's correct.
He's gonna move it to lower the berm so you can see down Lake Road,
Not down Lake Road, down the
down
driveway.
the driveway, but you're gonna move that soil all over into a lower area on his property.
Right,
Cover it with topsoil
right,
and be done.
right,
Not affecting the neighbors' properties at all.
right. As a matter of fact, all of this effort has been a substantial improvement to the area of the neighbors because a great deal of drainage improvement was done in advance of doing any of this earthwork. So the site is going to be higher, drier, and green.
Joe?
Yeah, no, my bigger thing was that if we're pulling it off the bank, well, it's not, there's no organics in it to sustain. That's why I asked about the topsoil.
All
So
silty
he's gonna
fine
strip the
sand, fine
topsoil,
sandy silts,
put
clay.
that on the bottom, and then put topsoil back over the
Right.
top.
The material that came off the bluff would not support grass very well.
And I would
Does it
assume
say-
that the catch basin that's shown in that picture is just gonna be raised to grade once it's done?
That's correct, and actually, there's another inlet that's gonna be put along that line, and yes, and that's exactly what will happen.
I would recommend that we issue a fill permit for 1626 Lake Road based on the submitted plans.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you for your thorough explanation of this.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Josh, does DPW then just issue the permit? Do you?
Yes. But then they'll probably be looking for it at 9:02 tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, this is not on the agenda, but we'll finish up with this. Town Attorney Genesi and I got together today on several subjects. The Park District of Candlewood Park, which I think Charlie has about 110 homeowners. They want to split the Park District into two. They have Bear Creek for like 10 or 12 people, and then the other 100 are in Candlewood. It does make sense. The Bear Creek people don't have any access to the current part of whatever. And we are they've gotten the proper signatures, Charlie. I mean,
I received an opinion, as you recall, we had met with them numerous times.
Yes.
I received an opinion from the Association of Towns and did research myself, and it looks like the only thing we can do actually is request from the state a home rule message separating the Park District.
right.
So this will not require, as far as I can tell, a swap of any kind or a payment of any kind, but it will require a home rule message. So we'll have to make a motion, or not make a motion, make a resolution directed to our two state representatives, our assemblyman and our state senator, requesting that the Candlewood Park be split.
Okay. I'm going to save that till next week because there's nothing in the paperwork. I think that the board deserves to see the paper trail we have from the residents who signed off and what they signed off.
I think we need something from the residents, absolutely,
And we have.
exactly as to what they
keep
want.
flying in the
Yeah.
last day or two. So, and we've already told the leadership of those residents, right, Paul, they do have a pretty robust leadership of the Park District.
They're very active.
They're very active, they deal with you from a standpoint of setting up the budget for the park district. We have said to them, it doesn't matter how quickly we do this in the next day, week, whatever, it's not gonna hit the tax bill for the town and the park district until January of 2022. So it really is not a time is of the essence move. I don't wanna kick the can down the road for a few months, but we will come back to the board when we can show you the paperwork we have.
Did you mean 21?
No, 22. That is
It's
correct.
gonna take all of next year just to get through home rule.
I was gonna say, they need to be aware of how
No,
long
I did
home rule
not,
takes.
I did not say that wrong, Joe.
Okay.
Okay?
I
So,
heard it wrong.
You know, we have let them know in no uncertain terms, we've met with the leaders a couple of times, and they know that and they understand that and whatever. So we'll get that together. And last but not least, not on the agenda, is a workshop, we get some latitude. I do gotta get out of here, I gotta pick up a kid at hockey in about 10 minutes. I spoke to the MVP rep today for health insurance, Kim Monroe, and we had a nice conversation for 40 minutes. She is agreed and is kind of excited to do it, is she's gonna start putting together a PowerPoint presentation to show the departments and the staff at Webster the benefits, no pun intended, of the high deductible, low premium health savings account health plans. As we dovetail toward open enrollment on January 1st, this board, I really believe in the next month or two, is going to have to get into discussions about what health plans that we offer to our employees going into 2021. I know that there was something that was talked about last year by this board. Is that correct?
Briefly.
Briefly. Would I be safe in saying, Bill, that the brief conversation was that the board, based on the information that they had, saw the merit of moving toward low premium, high deductible tied to health savings account plans?
Yes.
Okay. Having been through this with my own company 7 years ago, I will not be coy. It is a good move. It's a win for the town, and I personally believe it's a win for the employee. And I've seen it for 7 years be a win for my family. And when you have a family that has 9 people on your health insurance that are young and playing sports, if we end up not paying a lot of money and with 9 potential people getting hurt in surgeries or whatever, I feel pretty confident that it works at a family that's an average of 4.5 people. But that's just my opinion. Kim Monroe, as the MVP exec, is going to put together the slides that their company uses to show people the comparison of a core plan with, what is it, a HRA, what is it, Paul?
Yeah, core plan has an HRA, high deductible has an HSA,
HRA stands for
health reimbursement
health
account.
reimbursement.
And you use it or you lose it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A health savings
HSA you
account
keep.
is your money.
That's correct.
Okay, does it roll?
The HRA does roll, but if it's limited to $5,000. It's the most that can be in it. And if you leave employment, it goes back to the town.
Gotcha.
If it's an HSA, it's your money. And
Yep. I wanted to broach this tonight because since it's fresh, and as Paul knows, and as Barry Dean knows, today's call with Kim Monroe really spawned off of as we entered into the police union negotiations. But any move like this on health insurance doesn't just affect one department. It is all the town employees. If memory serves me, the department heads all use the high deductible, low premium with the town contributing to the HSA. Lead by example, right? So Kim is going to be doing presentations in September, and was very appreciative, by the way, that we'll do this in September, because when you get into December for health insurance people, that's crazy time, is it not, Patty? That's open enrollment time. So she was doing an Irish jig, at least on the phone, that she was so happy to hear that we want her to do this for our departments in September. That's a more peacetime a year for her. We'll start with the police department. She understands she can't get all 35 officers in one sitting. We wouldn't have anybody out patrolling the roads. So we'll work with the police officers that Barry, Paul, you and I are dealing with to figure out, is that, 2 or 3 or 4, whatever.
It's 3.
It's, the game. But we have to have this conversation that it's the whole town. You can't just pick, so it's something, it does fit into the fact about the budget being moved till November 19th. This is one of those unknown things. And I think that I'm realistic to this, having gone through it. We're the employer. They're the employees. The employer's saying this is good. I understand an employee having a jaded eye thinking, okay, yeah, you're telling me that. MVP showing facts and data, being a third party showing it. I would like to think we'll, at least educate and make this easier for people to see the merits of it. I'm new to this. I do not, from what I can tell, when it comes new to this, I never had to deal with unions as a private employer. I've read the union contracts. I will look for some guidance from Attorney Genesi. I'll look for guidance from our outside firm that is labor attorney, law firm. I think the term, same or better coverage?
Same or equal to.
Thank you, Barry. That's a very ominous, ambiguous statement, in my opinion. To me, I think the high deductible, low premium HSA count is, what did you call it again? Same or better? Similar?
Or equal, same or equal to.
To me, it is. I think it's better. But that's my opinion. And I realize that maybe not everybody's going to agree with that. Maybe the law does it. I don't know. I'll look for your guidance on that. But the reality is we got September 1st coming up. We're 4 months away from January 1st. And reality says that we're really 3 months away from when you have to give your health insurance offerings to your employees. That's the window we have. Any comments, questions?
None?
Go pick your offspring up.
I am going to go pick them up. All right? And I'm going to tell you something, Bill. How is it that they got to wear masks and sit 6 feet apart when they're dressing for hockey? Then they get on the rink, they kill each other, they're spitting all over each other, sitting on the bench 2 feet away with no mask. But then they go out and they got to get undressed 6 feet apart with masks.
I don't know.
You want to explain that to me?
I don't make the rules.
You want to explain that to me? Back to the governor.
I don't make the rules.
I don't have to do this, right?
It makes sense of nonsense.
Ask the king.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming tonight, Ken.